Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm coming at you a little bit late, but hey, let me clear off this screen a little bit too, if you'll forgive me. Just gotta lick this screen a little bit, guys. There we go. Oh, so much better, I think. I'm not quite sure if that fixed it at all. Wanted to just kind of talk about some things that are happening in South Sudan. Just really terrible things that are happening in South Sudan. Again, this is like one of the more recent, newer countries, but they've been dealing with a whole lot. And just a few months ago, there was a ceasefire that was signed, I believe, between the people, some of the leaders that were actually ousted. But there's a lot still happening. And I was just reading this article. It was reposted, I think, by the New York Post, but initially by the Associated Press, basically talking about a 10-day mass rape. So again, this is maybe not something that most people want to hear or listen to, but it is something that I want to talk about because in a world where we're always talking about our own issues here in the United States, I am always grateful that I'm growing up here in the United States, that I'm growing up here in a state, in a city, in a township where I don't have to see these things on a daily basis. I read about them and my heart just pours out for people that actually have to deal with this. So I'm going to read through as much of this as possible because I just feel like the information needs to be disseminated. And I feel like this is the platform that I have. This is my time to tell people about things like this. So wrapping an arm around her stomach, the young woman hung her head and recounted a day in early November when she and a friend were bound, dragged into a bush, and raped by four men with guns. She said, "My body hasn't been the same since." The men attacked during an hours-long walk home from the South Sudan village of, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's Nihialju. "I was crying and screaming, but I was so far from the village that no one could hear me," she told the Associated Press, which doesn't identify survivors of sexual assault. Shock and outrage followed when the medical charity Doctors Without Borders announced that 125 women and girls had been raped, whipped, and clubbed over 10 days in November, and a spike in sexual violence. Horrific, the United Nations Secretary General said. They were attacked as they made the long walk to a food distribution site in Benshu in Unity State. And this is the issue here in countries like South Sudan. You have, again, a relatively new country that has pretty much been dragged into a civil war, and you have women, children, people who are unarmed, people who cannot protect themselves, that are literally traveling tens, if not hundreds of miles a day to a week to try to find food, to try to get food from sparsely located food centers in their country and bring it back home. And while they're traveling alone, unarmed, unprotected, you have people, sometimes the military, sometimes the very military that you think is there to protect you, are the ones that are actually there torturing, raping, pillaging, hurting you. And that's what's actually happening here. So an exclusive look at the aftermath. The Associated Press joined the UN peacekeeping patrol where the attacks occurred as humanitarians, rights groups, and South Sudan government, the South Sudan government officials scrambled to find out more. Rape has been widely used as a weapon in South Sudan even after the peace deal was signed in September to end the 5-year civil war. It's killed nearly 400,000 people. Humanitarians have warned of higher rates of sexual assault as growing numbers of desperate people trying to reach aid. While some aid groups have quietly questioned whether all 125 people in a Doctors with Border report got raped, they do not dispute that the problem has become grave. The 13-year-old was not included in that report, and the real toll of sexual assault isn't even known, which is just, again, terrible. Joining the UN patrol, the AP traveled the potholed road where the recent assaults took place, shrouded by trees and elephant grass. Some stretches provide cover for perpetrators to lurk. I mean, if you can imagine your child, your daughter, your wife, whomever, going from Philadelphia to New York, from Detroit to Flint, even I'll even do a shorter distance. Just imagine that distance. I mean, some places in some inner cities you can't even walk down the street without the risk of getting shot. But just imagine having to do that every single day. And I don't know what the temperature's like in South Sudan, but I can imagine it's probably hot most of the time, most of the year. So imagine doing that, and then not only that, but having to keep an eye out for people that are literally trying to hurt you and destroy you, destroy your body, take away your innocence. I mean, this is just terrible. Um, Several local women said violence is escalating. I won't try to pronounce her name, but Nyao Guan Malmoon said she was held at gunpoint last month while two men in civilian clothes, their faces covered, stole her clothes, her shoes, and the milk she meant to sell at a market. Standing beside the road, pointed to her borrowed oversized sneakers, she said she now tries to take alternative routes on her weekly walks to Benshu. She has no other choice. Food in Yaodu and nearby villages is scarce. Most people could not cultivate last season because of fighting and too much rain. Many rely on monthly aid from the UN's World Food Program. And I have to say this: if this is a season of giving, this is a season of cheer and all those things. If you have money to give to things like the UN Food Program. Give to things like Doctors Without Borders, because those are the boots on the ground. Try to find those aid groups that are actually helping. I know there are many out there. I haven't vetted them personally, but try to find groups that are actually giving money and real aid, and not just food, but actually building the infrastructure. Because in this case, it's one thing for the UN World Food Program to actually have distribution centers for food. It's another thing for them to help build roads, and to help build roads that are protected, and to help provide even buses, to help cut down the grass in some of these areas so that travel from point A to point B could actually be safe. I mean, there's a point where some of these groups, they have to do more, but they can't do more without funding from people like us. And we're leaving so many people at a disadvantage, and it frustrates me to no end. So it actually does say in this article, the UN is now clearing the road from Benshu to Nialdu of debris to make access easier. No one has taken responsibility for the wave of assaults that the UN and African Union have condemned as abhorrent and predatory. South Sudan's government has acknowledged the assaults occurred in areas it controls on the roads between Yaldu and Benshu and in surrounding villages, but it blames them on the unregulated youth who fought alongside warring factions before the peace deal. Laurent Machar Tual, who is the deputy governor of Northern Lake State, that was once part of Unity, told the AP, youth who were never officially integrated with armed groups have been left idle, guns in hand, to take what they want by force. South Sudan's government has called on all sides to demobilize the youth. It said it has deployed troops to areas in Unity State suspected of harboring criminals. And yet, the army in Yaldu has not detained anyone in the assaults and denies responsibility for finding the perpetrators. He said, the Army Commander John Dorr said they took place far from town, just outside of their jurisdiction. So if it's outside of your jurisdiction, and a lot of these children they're pretty much just they've been raised in war-ravaged South Sudan, and what else do they know? So now they're trying to make a way for themselves, they're trying to make a life for themselves. They have no one to tell them right from wrong, and this is what happens, and it's just terrible. Several local police said they knew of attacks in villages less than 15 kilometers away from the army base. Some who were attacked at gunpoint said they believe the armed youth are affiliated with government troops. The government has done nothing so far to stop the violence, one woman explained. The UN, which has increased patrols, is pushing South Sudan's government to take more responsibility. The UN Security Council, in a statement Saturday, noted its willingness to impose sanctions on those who threaten the peace, including sexual violence. They're obliged to make sure everyone's protected. It's not enough just to sit in one place and not be involved, said Paul Adejo Ebikwo, the UN mission's senior civil affairs officer in Benshu. Unity State was one of the hardest hit areas in the Civil War, and Benshu has changed hands several times. The government and opposition forces remain at odds, even as factions across the country try to reconcile. A meeting Thursday to build trust was canceled because the parties couldn't agree on a place to meet, said the independent monitoring group charged with overseeing the peace deal's implementation. Meanwhile, many women and girls are rightfully terrified. Cautiously peering through the streets, several hesitantly emerged from the bush, inching toward the side of the road. We're walking here because we're scared of coming on the main path, said Nyaching Gottman. 3 days ago, she said she met a breastfeeding mother and young girl who had been raped in a nearby town. Standing beside her, 11-year-old Anshankwal dude lowered her heavy bag of grain and gulped from a bottle of water. It's a long distance to go from Benshu, the girl said, but we do it because we need food and because we're suffering. And to me, it's just terrible. So, I hate to be a downer, but this is the news that should be covered. I see so many people, so many news sites covering all these other stories about celebrities and about, what's happening on YouTube and social media and Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, Donald Trump everything. But I feel like I wish we covered stories like this more often, and they weren't just infomercials that were shown at 3 or 4 in the morning with some sad music. I wish this was what was being shown on the 7 o'clock in the morning news, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, Good Day, all these Good Day America, all those things. I wish they would just save 1 minute for countries that where these types of things are happening, and there would just be more of a concerted effort. There is more than enough money. And even if there's not enough money, we just need to just do this out of the goodness of our hearts. There shouldn't be any country, any group of people that have to suffer unnecessarily. I mean, we talk about Central America. I just read another article where Mexico is donating billions of dollars, or is going to be, pushing billions of dollars into Central American countries to help, I guess, build their infrastructure to boost those areas. It needs to happen everywhere. It needs to happen in India. It needs to happen in Myanmar. It needs to happen in Central America. It needs to happen in South Sudan, and so many countries. So many countries. The places that Donald Trump calls the shithole countries. Those countries these people should not be left behind. You should not be at a disadvantage as a human being because of the location that you were born in. I just don't believe that. I do not believe it. Everyone should have an equal right and an equal access to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, freedom, all those things. All those inalienable rights that we take for granted every single day that we wake up here in the United States of America. People all around the world should have that same right. And that's my bottom line in this. Let me know what you guys think, and how can we help? How can we help? Who out there that is helping? Have you been to these countries before? I'd love to know. I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and peace out.